and welcome to this episode of Semi-Sages of the Pages.
Yay!
Thank
I
you
don't
for
know why we
joining
do that.
us
Why do we always cheer?
because we're
Oh,
awesome.
Well, that
'cause
works.
we don't have a live audience, so we have to do it ourselves.
Well,
Everybody at home, cheer!
yeah. We're actually just cheering for Kyle, who's joining us today. For those of you, I'll give a quick introduction and then I'll let him introduce himself. Kyle is part of our writing community, and last year we did, for the full year, did what we call our Race to Rejection, where we support each other. Because writing is a very difficult hobby if you want to get published, whether you're in short stories or you're trying to get a novel published, and you face a lot of rejection. It's par for the course. We all face it, and it can get really demoralizing at times. So we set up, for our community set up the Race to Rejection so we can celebrate those as wins instead of letting them demoralize us. And so last year, Kyle won our Race to Rejection, became Rejection royalty, and agreed to join us today and talk with us. So thank you.
Yeah.
Would you like to give a little introduction about who you are, what you write, and all of that for our listeners?
Sure. I could do that. So I'm Kyle Shepard, or KJ Shepard is my pen name. I fairly recently started getting published, so it's not like I've been doing this. Well, I have been doing it for a while. But I only started submitting writing in like 2017. I actually have back here an honorable mention plaque thing that I got from Writers of the Future contest.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's from 2017. And that was like well before I knew what I was doing. And to get that at that stage, I think helped propel me a little bit to keep going. But yeah, I've always kind of been interested in writing. I just never thought about doing it seriously until I met, well, one of my brother's friends was into writing too, and I always kind of knew that, but we never really talked about it. And once I got to know him a little better, his name's Zach Chapman, in case he sees this. He writes
Hey,
comic
Zach.
books now.
Cool.
Yeah. But he did a lot of short stories, and like seeing him do it, I'm like, if this guy can do it, I can definitely do it. So
That's
How many
almost an
times-
insult.
Yeah. How
Yeah.
many authors' careers are started by this thing's crap? I can do better.
yeah. But no, I enjoy his stories for sure. Yeah, just, and I never went to school for writing or anything. I didn't go to college, so I struggle a lot with imposter syndrome. I'm sure a lot of us do, but it's a thing I have to constantly get over and just do it. I think I'm stubborn, and so if like I'm not doing something right, or if I'm not doing it good enough, then I want to keep doing it until I get it. So yeah, it's a little about myself. Not sure what else I should say. This is why I write, and I don't like give speeches because like the
No.
words don't come from my mouth; they come from my fingers.
No, you're doing great. You're doing great.
That's
So
a mood right
last-
there, that the words come from your finger. I feel like sometimes I need my hands on a keyboard, and I'll find myself talking, and while I'm talking, like my fingers are moving as if they're typing. Anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Wow,
I
now
feel
I'm
you.
gonna have to watch for that next time. I've never seen you do that.
It's how I know how to spell things as well. But anyway, Teresa, you were going to ask a question.
I was. So last year you won our race to rejection. So our race to rejection is just us celebrating, and we actually challenge each other to have the most rejections at the end of the year, because the most rejections means you've had some acceptances. So last year you had 106 rejections, which, okay, if you think about that, that's like a rejection like every 3.5 days. I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a
But-
lot you're submitting. Like, that's another very impressive. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Teresa. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. No, and that's actually a really good point too, because every time you submit, it's not like you can just kind of like just oftentimes just submit. You have to read the requirements, be like, oh, shoot, this one story doesn't quite fit, or it might fit if I tweak it a little bit. And oh, shoot, this one wants a cover letter, and this one wants a bio that's only 2 sentences, and this one wants a bio that's a page. So now I have to rewrite that. It just all like that part takes a lot of time too.
It almost takes as much time as like the writing itself.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's craziness. And then you proof it 200 times because, that's when there's a typo.
I probably should, but I don't.
At this point, if you're doing that many submissions, you just gotta submit. You just gotta like hit the button.
Maybe that's the secret to my speed. I just don't proofread it. Just send it. Good.
Maybe that's it.
An editor will see it and they'll catch all that stuff.
But I mean, it's also good to say that you had rejections, but you had acceptances and submissions accepted as well.
Yeah, I sold my biggest story so far was last year. I only submitted it last year. I think it was late. It was supposed to be, I know it was like 2 or 3 months late, but I had gotten the guy's permission to keep working on it and submit it when I was ready. So he said yeah, and I was like, cool. But the cap was only supposed to be 10,000 words. But when I was writing it, it felt like it wanted to keep going, and it ended up being almost 18,000 words.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that was the longest thing I've written. So when I submitted it, I had a pretty good feeling about it, but I didn't know, obviously, like you never know if it's going to get accepted.
Yeah.
But yeah, it got accepted, and that was my, it's a Weird West horror story kind of thing.
Ooh, I just was selling some Weird Westerns at WonderCon. So I love Weird Westerns. So
it's funny because I've read a few, but I've never tried to write any Western or Weird Western or anything like that. So that was my first attempt.
They're so much fun. Yeah, I've got one in one of my collection of short stories. So which publication was this?
So it's called Malahas Press, but I believe it's just one guy. And so this is kind of like be aware of, like, I definitely learned a lesson because he made a lot of promises, like on his open call page, that he didn't really follow through on.
Oh.
So yeah, he was promising like a Kickstarter or Indiegogo and all this stuff. Like it was going to be at least semi-pro rates, possibly even professional rates if it, got to that level of funding. And so I was like, yeah, that sounds good. But I should have done a little research into the press and just realized it was just this one guy's vanity press kind of thing.
Oh.
But yeah, he ended up capping the payment for each author at $250, and so I sold that huge story for $250. I'm looking back, I don't think, because I wrote it specifically for this guy's open call.
Mm-hmm.
So I probably wouldn't have written it otherwise. So I think it needed to be in that anthology because it's very specific. It's like every story shares that same world, basically. He basically laid out the world for the writers to create their own story, and I thought that was really cool because there was a lot of details and a lot to work with. And yeah, I don't really regret sending it to him and selling it to him. But it's just something to be aware of, that you should do some research or background on the press, in quotes, that you're submitting to.
Yeah, no, that's really, really good advice. And I agree. I think in the publishing industry, especially in indie presses, it is having, owning an indie press, it is a lot of work. And I think a lot of people don't realize how much work it is and how much I's you have to dot and T's you have to cross. And it's easy to have the best of intentions, truly, truly easy, and then just not to be able to deliver.
Yeah, definitely true. And not trying to cast shade on him or anything like that, but it's just something to be aware of. Mm-hmm. I know he's probably, because he's writing and he's submitting, he's in the business too, so yeah, I know he's probably busy and with a day job, so
yeah. So yeah, always good advice just to ask questions.
So we've actually got a lot of questions in the chat, and I want to get to some of them for you, Kyle. The first one from Tally, is what's your favorite rejection you've received and why?
Ooh, good question.
I think this one, I guess, does an honorable mention count as a rejection? Because you didn't get in.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful way to reject people. Hey, you didn't get in, but you got an honorable mention. It was awesome.
Yeah. And so, like I said earlier to you guys, that kind of propelled me because that was in second quarter 2017 of the Writers of the Future contest. They do like one for each quarter of the year. And that was like right when I started submitting stuff. So I didn't really know what I was doing. I had my friends to kind of help me out. So I had that at least. And then just getting that, the writing or when I got the email that I was going to get an audible mention and it was going to come with a cool certificate, definitely that's my favorite one because nothing else came with anything physical. It's all just like an email or something.
Thank you for submitting. We are going in a different direction. We encourage you to submit again and elsewhere.
Yeah. I have gotten a lot of personals, but none of them, like now that I'm pressed to remember any, none of them really stand out. So I'm going to go with that one.
All right.
That's awesome.
Another person asked, how do you know when it's time to quit on a story or on a topic?
I don't know. I never quit. I just keep going. Like there's a story that
That's a good answer.
A handful of stories that I have probably close to 20 rejections on, and I just keep submitting them.
So can I ask, do you revise them or re-edit them, or do you just keep sending out?
Yeah, I will sometimes, not every time.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it just depends, like if I have time or if I feel like I want to revisit it and look at it. But especially, especially if they do provide any feedback and it's actionable feedback, which is kind of rare, then definitely I'll take a look at it, try to fix it.
That's cool.
Yeah, I don't stop. I keep going.
That's probably for the best.
Yeah. Never give up, never surrender.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm
Galaxy
pretty
Quest.
I'm so proud that I got to work that in.
Next person, Sue wants to know, she asked how many books you've written, but I think in this context, maybe how many stories have you written?
So that is a good question because I'm kind of ADD. I'm trying to get diagnosed. I'm not officially diagnosed, but I think that I am. I'll write several different stories at the same time.
Oh, wow.
I won't finish them. I'll think of something new and I'll start writing that. And I just kind of like snowballs, and I have a dozen or 24 working stories probably right now. And I don't think that's ideal. You should probably write one thing and focus on it and then get it to where you can submit it and then move on to the next thing. But it would be cool if my brain worked that way. But it doesn't. I just kind of like jot down ideas and then I see where it can go. And then sometimes it doesn't go anywhere. And I'll move on to something else.
And that's your process, and obviously it's working for you. So if it's working, don't change it.
Yeah. So I can say how many I've got published, I suppose. Let me check my website really quick.
Well, and I'm kind of jealous because when you operate in more of the short story realm, I'm going to say short story is a very broad definition here, right? That's very broad. So let's say 20,000 words and under, for example, but that can go all the way down to like 100-word flash fiction, you know? Mm-hmm. When you operate in those smaller story lengths, it's harder for me because I don't do that a lot, but it is really fun sometimes because you get to play and you get to like say like what you were talking about, where if a story doesn't go anywhere, you don't feel like, okay, well, I wrote down 2,000 words and it didn't go anywhere and that's fine. And then I have this other story that I'm going to work on. And it's not a big, if I write 50,000 words and it doesn't go anywhere and the book doesn't work, that's a lot of lot of time that I've put into this project to have it go nowhere.
Yeah, and see, if that was me, I wouldn't give up on it. I would probably be stubborn and just keep working at it. I don't know. It's in my goal this year to write a novel, so we'll see how that goes.
Awesome.
But yeah, I do operate in the smaller, shorter fiction range. I've written, I think, 3 stories for 101words.org.
Mm,
So the story has to be exactly 101 words.
yeah.
It's all digital. So I was looking just now, and I've published 11 stories.
That's awesome. Congrats.
Well,
That's really, really good.
and since you brought it up, someone in the chat does want to know, what's the subject of your next book?
So it is a mystery thriller / cosmic horror.
I love it.
Yeah, it's gonna be about a movie that comes out. It could be like now times or like slightly future. I'm not sure yet. But a movie comes out where the audience is like hypnotized to sleep halfway through, and each individual person dreams the ending. So it's like a personal kind of movie.
Oh, that's fun.
So it's gonna start out kind of lighthearted like that, but then obviously I write mostly like dark fiction. I don't know why, I just kind of gravitated towards that. Most of my stuff ends pretty dark.
That's part of the
So
fun.
yeah, in that fashion, this is gonna take like a weird Lovecraftian twist that I probably shouldn't get too much into because I don't fully have it all worked out. But I'm excited about it, so it should be fun.
Good. Nice. And then final question from the chat. And this I really want to know the answer to as well. And this will be relevant to those of us who are part of the Semi-Sages Discord. We'll know what this question is about. Sue wants to know, how is Rod and the Moisture Farmers shenanigans at Grainy Station coming along?
That's
I haven't worked on it. I actually have written like a few paragraphs of it, and so I have like a few characters like in mind, and I wrote some notes. So it's actually on a page somewhere in my Google Drive, but I randomly think about it from time to time, and it's kind of in the background working in my head. But yeah, I think it shows promise, which is funny because how it originated was hilarious.
So for those of you who aren't on our Discord, basically we started a discussion about words that we don't like and words that we find uncomfortable, and yeah, words that we don't like. And words that came up were rod, moisture, shenanigans, moist,
Shenanigans.
yeah,
I mean,
shenanigans,
just
and
say that
grainy.
word. Moist.
Moist.
And yeah, grainy. I feel like texture words are the ones that we're like, ugh.
Yeah. And so
So yeah, then somebody was like, put it all into a story, and I was like, I'll put it all into a title, and so that's how that title came about.
Oh, I remember. Oh. So
I was going to say, I think, you know, we've been talking for about 20 minutes, and usually we try to keep these interviews on the briefer side. So I think we're going to start wrapping up now. But before we do, want to give you the opportunity, if you have any, you know, words of wisdom, anything you want to share with our audience, this is your moment. And also, if they want to find you, connect with you, do you want to pitch your website, pitch where they can, you know, find you and find out more about your writing?
Yeah, I could do that. So I have a website. It's kylejshepard.com. Shepard is SHEPHERD, since there's like 11 different ways to spell Shepard.
It's just kylejshepard.com, you said?
Yeah.
I put it in the chat.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Also on Twitter, I'm Kyle Does Words. I think on most of my social media, I changed it to Kyle Does Words in some form or fashion. So if you do that, and my website actually links to my socials. As far as words of wisdom, has been a theory that I've been working on, putting into action. And I think this helps me like stay motivated or think about writing like in my day-to-day activities. Um, I always like write down ideas of like you see something in a movie and you're like, that's cool. And you're like, you get some spark of an idea, so you take that and you write it down. Or like you overhear some snippet of conversation at work and you take that and you write it down. And or like you dream about something weird, but like you get input from all these places. And so I kind of like lean into that and let myself be influenced by like everything that happens in my day-to-day life and just like throw it into the blender and like see if anything kind of morphs or evolves from that. But yeah, it kind of like puts you in this mindset to like always be looking for a story in like everything. So even if you feel like you're slacking, like you're not writing, you're just playing a video game or watching a movie, you kind of still are.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Really good advice.
The looking for a story in everything. That is great.
Yeah.
All right, Teresa, you want to take... Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Kyle.
Sorry, I just have like weird tangent thoughts, but it's in the same note as that. So like, I didn't always do that. So it's something I'm trying to put into practice more. But like, I would go back and look at old notes that I would take, and I wouldn't put down any context, like where the idea came from or anything else what I was thinking. I would just write because it kind of felt like cheating, I guess, to me. To like, I got this idea from this movie. So I'm very clear about where the ideas come from in my notes. That way I can go back to it, like if it's been a while. Yeah, if you go back and look at some of my old notes, it's just like a sentence and that's it. And like I can't even work anything off that.
You're like, what was I thinking? What does that mean?
Yeah. I have
Some
one
of
of
them
those
are pretty
too.
obscure. And I'm just
Yeah. Yeah, I got nothing. So if this sounds like something that you're like, ooh, I want to be a part of the Resolution Warriors and, you know, track my rejections and get cheered on for getting rejections, Molly, where can they go?
You can come to our Discord, the Semi-Sages of the Pages Discord. You can also find us on our website, semisagesofthepages@gmail.com. Or if all of that is confusing for you, you just want to send us an email and say, point me in the right direction, you can always do that, semisages@gmail.com. And if you liked this video, thumbs up, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss the next thing. Did I miss anything?
No, and in fact, if you go to our website, say www.semisagesofthepages.com, you'll see it looks a little bit different because that rebranding that we keep promising, it's coming.
All right.
It truly is. So we've got a new logo, new website. I have no idea when we're launching it because I can't remember, but it's sometime in April. Watch for that to be
It is as exciting now. You don't know when it's coming.
Neither do we. But sometime in April. Whole new everything. So
a whole new world. All right, Disney, don't sue us. On that note, everyone have a lovely evening.
Thanks for coming, KJ. It was really great meeting you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was awesome.
Anytime.